I want to introduce you to Indy and her dad, Jason. When Jason first reached out to my program, Teen FND Academy, his family had already been through 7 different approaches, different providers, different promises, and they kept hitting walls. Jason was understandably cautiously skeptical, and I think his words were something like, "We want to try one more time." And I totally respect that, because that takes a specific kind of courage and to be tired and still show up. What I didn't know yet was what this family was capable of. One of the things that makes Teen FND Academy different is that parents are not on the sidelines. They are in the program. They have a specific role to learn and practice showing up as a steady leader their teenager needs. And Jason and his wife, Lisa, did exactly that. And what Indy has done as a result, that resilience this young person has shown, I am going to let them tell you themselves. Stay with me. You are going to want to hear this one.
As always, I'm going to add intro and an outro later, but really the conversation is about focusing on your experience. So I will ask the same question to both of you, and maybe you can take turns on answering each question if that works out for you. One from the parent's perspective, and then one from you, Indy, your perspective. So the very first question is how your life was with FND before you started the program, like symptoms, how they were impacting your life and all of the other things that was going on. You want to start, Indy?
Yeah. So I joined this program in October, I think, which means at that point I was having seizures every day. Multiple seizures a day. I was just beginning to transition out of my wheelchair, and I think that decision was partially, if not fully, because of us joining the program. I was not in school, which technically I'm still not. I'm in online school. I had really intense gait issues. I couldn't walk for longer than a few minutes at a time. I was unemployed because I couldn't handle working. Convulsions, yeah.
Dropping attacks.
Aphasia. Voice not working, essentially.
Tics, which we think the tics may have actually been earlier on, an early symptom of FND that we didn't know about. We miss anything? Oh, your leg turning inward, your gait inward.
Gait issues, yeah.
Yeah.
Vision issues that would pop in every now and then. There's a lot. Yeah,
pretty much all the things that, with the exception of blindness, that was about the only symptom that when we saw on the list of things that she wasn't having actively. So it started in August of 2024, and it started with convulsions, and that's when she first got diagnosed after spending a week at Children's Hospital, at Blank's Children's Hospital. And for that, it was but convulsions were the primary, where literally she couldn't stop convulsing. And then we did a program, great program, but during that's when the gait issues started. And then when we got back from that, literally we were there for almost a month. Came back, and within a week, she started having non-epileptic seizures. And that became, I think, the biggest part.
Yeah, the seizures were definitely the most debilitating symptom.
And they would last anywhere from a minute to, I think the longest one was an hour and a half, and that was the very first one. And I remember that. She doesn't, but I very much do, because it was one of the most terrifying things we'd ever been through. And the convulsions were the first terrifying one. Like, that was hard enough. We did multiple neurological appointments. She'd go to school, had to leave school. I think you maybe went to school a total of 4 days total, like actual all day.
Maybe, I think 2 weeks, like two weeks worth of days throughout the entirety of my final year.
Maybe.
Before it started, I had.
You had a solid week before it started. But yeah, so I think that was the hard part. She'd go for an hour, and we'd have to go pick her up. And for the most part, she was bedbound or couch-bound. Like, she literally just laid on the couch pretty much all day long.
Doing schoolwork.
Still graduated a year early, straight A's. I mean, she still crushed it, and that still wrote a book, did all the things. But in the midst of that, I think it just was controlling every aspect of our life before the program. Like, every decision we made was around FND and its symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that, you've been through the ringer, right? So many, and winding path. And I'm also curious about what your experience was hearing for the first time that you have FND, how your experience was or leading up to it, right? Because I would imagine you had a lot of doctor's appointments, and it's very confusing, and nobody knows what FND is until you receive a diagnosis. And even then, it can be confusing.
Yeah. So we were actually a little familiar with the condition. We had 2 kids my age that had it, though their symptoms were very
wildly different.
One would pass out and her leg would randomly give out, and the other had burning legs. So legs are apparently a very common thing. But so I knew a little bit about it, but not very much until I got the diagnosis. I was lucky that I got diagnosed very quickly in relation to when the onset started, and it was likely because it went from 0 to 100 and it was nonstop. So we were trying to make sure I didn't have brain damage. The first doctor we had seen had been the first one to suggest it, but she was like, just in case, we're going to send you to the second hospital to do the rest of the testing and make sure it's not that. So that was when we got the official diagnosis, and they really just said, here's a single sheet of paper that tells you what it is. Good luck. You have to do your own research.
Most of it was very dismissive. So her primary doctor knew nothing about it. And so for him, he was like, in fact, she actually had a non-epileptic episode on the table.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
And he just stood back and was like, I don't know what to do. And so he just stood there and watched it and was like, I have no clue what's happening right now. I don't know how to fix this. I'm like, nope, welcome to our reality, literally every day. But even the neurologists, we went to a leading hospital, which I'm going to try and avoid names just because I don't know what the legality issues around those are. But we went to a very well-known, reputable hospital that was known for treatment of FND, and they were incredibly dismissive of where she was at. After we did two. We did one overnight EEG. That was at the big hospital.
The first one had been a 5-hour.
That's right. And when they got done, they were very affirming. But then it was, well, it's not epilepsy. It's not really a seizure. Stop calling them non-epileptic. Stop calling them seizures. They're not seizures. And literally, she was almost attacking. And so I think most of our encounters were either dismissive or it's all in your head. And so just do some therapy and you'll get better, or and by therapy, I mean like psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, DPT, dialectical behavioral therapy. But none of those seemed to work. We tried every tincture. We tried for mold. We were told it was a mold issue. And like at one point it was going to cost us like $15,000 to get rid of mold in our house. And we had to try this regimen of mold, getting toxicity out of her. We've done month-long therapies, which again, wonderful place. And they do incredible work, but it got rid of the convulsions, but it then brought a whole bunch of other things. Therapy ongoing. I mean, everybody. Well, and again, as a Christian and as a pastor, we had people who were like wanting to cast out demons out of her. It was a spiritual issue. And I share that because if you're a Christian family and you're dealing with this, that actually was more harmful than helpful. At one point,
it was not fun to be told I was cursed.
I think being a Christian and being a pastor, we got a double dose of things, because it wasn't even just hey, try my home health remedy. It also became like, I actually had somebody who wrote out a thing and said, the Lord told me you're supposed to say these words over her in tongues. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, and it'll make her better. And I looked at that and I went, but what it did is it made it feel like it was something that she was choosing, or it was something that we were somehow at fault for doing. We weren't doing the right things. Even when we went to the regular hospitals, it's still, none of it was very hopeful. Actually, it felt almost shameful at times. And I think that added more hurt. I don't know. We've had many conversations about this. So that was kind of I think we did
many appointments ended in tears. 8
different attempts at different programs. And this is the first one that actually has had real results and offered not just results, but hope. So we're huge fans.
Perfect segue. And so you joined a program a few months ago, and which, by the way, the experience you have had is really unfortunate, right? Because you shouldn't have experienced any of that. And yet it is unfortunately very common, for a lot of families to feel dismissive, misunderstood, and straight up like rude, and just disheartening experiences. So it just breaks my heart every time I hear this. I should get used to it, but I don't think I will ever get used to it, hearing these horrible stories, because I really care.
And I think part of it is everybody's well-meaning. Like they love our family. The amount of love and support we've gotten from our community has been remarkable. We were only able to do the programs because of the generosity of people. None of this is covered by insurance, except for traditional medicine stuff. So the EEGs were covered, but all the other stuff was not. And
I'd also like to say that the school handled it fantastically.
Oh, our school was amazing with it.
They were great.
They were very understanding. They never dismissed. They just wanted to be helpful. And so shout out to our administration for how they handled that. But I think like we had people, I never realized how much home health care, like homeopathic things people were until this happened, where everybody was pitching me the thing that was going to fix the problem. from patches to supplements to, I kid you not, if I had done what everybody wanted, I'd be spending $2,000 a month on their product. And they all promised the same thing, which is, this is the magic cure all. And I'm like, yeah, life experience and just wisdom has taught me there's no such thing as a magic bullet. And
and which leads to my program was number 8 or 9, if not 700, down the list, right? And how did you guys feel about joining the program? And I know from the conversation you were hopeful, but I also was curious how you felt, Indy.
So I was actually pretty nervous. I liked
rightfully so.
The information part of it, because I'm very information minded. I like having knowledge, but I've been scared because I was like, I don't want to put my hope in another program just for it to end up just as successful as all the other ones, which was not successful.
Or not long-term success.
Not long-term success, yeah. It might have had success for a couple of weeks and then went downhill again. So I was nervous, but at the same time, I was also I'm willing to try anything. I vividly remember telling my parents, I'll try it, but you have to understand that I'm not going to be able to give it my 100% right off the bat, because I just don't think like that. So it did take me a hot minute to fully warm up to the program and fully be like, oh my gosh, this is actually doing something. I think it was really when I had my first non-epileptic day that I was really like, oh my gosh, this is actually working. So it took a while, but.
Well, and I'll actually say, we had conversations around things during the program where, because of her social media influence, and we had a really deep conversation. We've talked about this, and because we've talked about it, I feel okay sharing it. But the change in mentality of even what she was posting online, from the hero's mindset, the resilient rose, all those things. And I remember that conversation, whereas in the past, it would have been really defensive. And you were like, well, and I said, would you ask Dr. Lee about it? And before she even had to ask you, within 3 days, she changed the tenor of her posts to very hopeful. And I don't think it's a coincidence, but that actually, I think, was part of the conversation, because you were having those conversations, not just us. And so it didn't feel combative. It didn't feel like it wasn't accusatory. It was just an honest question. And I don't remember if it was me or Lisa who first saw you. Yeah, I think I saw one of your videos and I was like, okay, I like what she has to say. What really struck me was that I didn't hear any shame in how you were talking about it. In fact, the things you were talking about were resilience. It was about the power of the mind, positivity, not just giving in. Actually, there are choices that you make that rebuild those connections, which all the other programs said similar things, but how they approached it was very different.
I also appreciated that it wasn't, we're going to have you better by the end of this.
There was
100% guarantee.
Yes.
And the fact that it was even 6 months and it was still, we're not making a promise, we're just hoping to help. That was a big change for me, because the other programs had been a few weeks, a month.
And everybody was like, oh, this is the promise if you do this. And the thing that, again, really intrigued me and I remember the conversation when I said, hey, would you check this out? And she's not lying when she said, well, I'll check it out, but I got to be honest. At that point, we were kind of exhausted. And in fact, the one program right before this was the toxicity of mold. And we did all these tests. And I remember you being so happy to hear that there was a reason that was causing it. And then we ran it through a different diagnostic and none of those things were present. And so it really made us go, wait, so which is it? And I think what we've discovered in the midst of this is the mindset is a really important thing, but also it's not one thing. And I felt like that's what everybody was trying to say. It's this one thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in your mind. And so if you just change your thought patterns, you'll be better. If you just if you just ignore it, it'll be better. Or if you take this supplement, it'll regulate and and I'm not saying that mold doesn't cause FND. I'm not an expert. I don't know. I feel almost like an expert. As much as we've had to learn about it. So I'm not going to say that those things don't work for other people, but it just felt like we were chasing symptoms and we were just looking for anything to ease a symptom instead of actually saying, what's the actual issue? And so when I first saw your video, that was when I'm like, well, listen to her, check her out. Then we had the call. And so I think I still was, what did I call myself?
Skeptically optimistic.
Skeptically optimistic. That was the word. I was skeptically optimistic, but I was still skeptical because everybody's made the same claims. And in fact, I don't think there was one who was like, oh, I don't know if this will work or not. Like everybody, even the doctors, like, nope, this is the treatment. This is what you need. For her seizures, it was stop calling them seizures and you won't have them anymore. That was literally the things they told her.
Mm-hmm. And you're choosing to be like this if you continue calling them that. That wasn't very nice to hear.
Well, and it didn't meet you where you were. And it felt like saying, well, the reason why you're having these is because you're calling them these. And yes, I think there's an element of the not buying into the symptom, but it felt like they were attacking the wrong thing. In fact, it felt like they were attacking you. I actually had to bribe her that if she did this program, I would buy her a sword.
And then they rejected her.
And then they rejected her.
I still have the sword. It's upstairs.
Yeah. So she got a sword out of it.
That's amazing. Wow. Yes, I know. And then every reason, right, for you to be skeptical and questioning, right? And then just wanting that some sort of hope, guarantee, or something, some sort of substance, right? Because it's just one more program that you're thinking about, right? And so you took a leap of faith, which is, I'm so glad, very grateful. And so far, what do you think has been helpful throughout the program? I hear mindset, shift a lot, which is the big thing. And it's really not the only thing.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's the biggest thing. It isn't, how do I explain this? The mindset isn't the cause of the symptoms, but it's one of the key proponents to helping with it because it allows your body to start learning how to regulate itself. The other really big factor, and that's something that was more so a change in my parents than it was for me, but also required some change in myself as well, was the agency aspect of allowing me to be independent. I'm naturally a very independent person. One of the worst parts of this condition was me losing my independence because all of a sudden I'm relying on my parents to get me everywhere and I can't go anywhere without my parents or without someone watching me. I couldn't even walk the halls of the school without my medical aid with me because we didn't want me to have an episode between classes. So really being told, hey, let her figure it out, take a step back and let her make her own decisions instead of controlling how she's handling her condition. That was a big change as well that I think was one of the biggest influences.
Yeah, I think for Lisa and I, and again, Lisa's not feeling well, otherwise she'd be on the call with us, but
she has something to say.
Oh, she's willing to say something off camera. She just doesn't want to say it on camera.
No, I can walk over.
Well, no, you look... Yeah, I wasn't. I'm itching my nose. She's like, don't pick your nose. I'm itching my nose, lady. Give me a break. So I'll say this, and then she can talk if she still wants to.
Oh, my Lord.
So we actually had to be trained as parents ourselves. And I think that was the other part and I appreciated something that you said early on, is that everything that we were doing, we did because we love our daughter and we were trying to protect her because that's what loving parents do. Instead of you did it wrong, it's maybe it wasn't the right thing, but of course you did those things because no one's ever dealt with FND before. So normally if a kid has a seizure, what do? You put them down, you make sure they're safe, you do all the things. But every time we would rush to the symptom, it was reinforcing the symptom. And for me, that was a little bit easier for me to go, okay, I'm just going to ignore it and act like everything's fine because that's my personality. For Lisa, that was a little bit harder because one, she's the mom, nurturer, and she had an advantage I didn't, which she kept this one in her belly for 9 months. So there's a little bit different sense of protection. But it really was like realizing that we were the ones, which is why being a part of the coaching cohort was so important for us. I thought this was something she had to journey through for herself. And being a part of the cohorts helped us realize, no, like we have a part to play in this because we can also reinforce the stuff in the brain. And so there was a whole training involved for the parents. And I think that was the most important part. And then I'll also say, not being afraid, because I'll be honest, and you can edit this out if you want to, because I don't know how I've not watched any of these interviews before, but the amount of times that I literally cried out in absolute fear and anger towards God of not understanding. And the emotion, it's hard to see your kid struggle and suffer and feel absolutely helpless. And she never saw those because I never wanted her to see that. But I can honestly, like, as a parent, I've talked to a few other parents who, one of them connected with the program already. Like, it is emotionally, it is the worst feeling in the world to feel helpless with a child. And to be given permission, that of course we felt that way, but then to realize that by giving her agency, that's actually the first step for me as a parent, is to stop running to the rescue, and I'm not failing her. And I think that's what was so hard, is the constant sense of I'm failing her if I'm not protecting her. I'm failing her if we're not dealing with the symptom. Like, I'm not being a good dad, because that's what dad, like, if there's a problem, we fix the problem. That's a parent, it's not just a dad issue. It's a parent issue. And to be told, no, it's okay to feel that way, but the best thing you can do is to give her the agency to let her figure it out, unless she's unsafe. And that was the key. It's not like hands off, like you're not kicking her out of the nest. And if she flies, great. And if she hits the ground, oh, well, that chicken just wasn't meant to land, right? That there are times that we have to be there, but most of the times we don't. And that took a little bit. It took a little bit of training to do that. And I think the other part is you gave us a realistic expectation. It was not and in 2 weeks you'll be better, or in 6 months you'll be better. It was, when the brain starts to do what it's doing, it'll start to get better. But I can't tell you when that's going to be. And then all of a sudden she had one full day without an episode. And I remember her coming into the bedroom in tears.
It was like 10:30 at night.
10:30 at night in tears, going, guess what? It's been a full 24 hours. And then we had one the next day. And then we had the 9 days where we went 9 days straight without one. But we were prepared. And I'd be lying to say that we weren't. I was kind of hoping, like, maybe this is the end. But we were prepared that it wasn't. And that, again, if it wasn't, it's not because she was failing or we were failing. It's that FND is a process. So, I mean, honestly, and I'm not doing this to fawn or to blow smoke. Legitimately, this program changed the trajectory of our family's life. It's the most hopeful I think we've been in probably 2 years. And looking back, I think we started seeing symptoms of FND as early as...
Tics started 2021.
2021 is when the tics started. And we noticed that as she started working on the FND stuff, the tics got better. They're still there, but realizing, like, maybe that was the beginning, because understanding the biopsychosocial phenomenon that is FND.
That's another one.
Yeah, that it's all these things wrapped in together, this perfect storm. So, I mean, legitimately... I can't say enough what this program has done for us. And also, we would not have been able to do it had it not been for the generosity of people in my community who were like, whatever it takes to get your daughter the help she needs, loved on us and allowed us to do it. And so I'll say that again, in case there are Christians who are watching. I think for Christians or people who are spiritual, things like this have a different ring, because we're so quick to associate a spiritual condition when sometimes, especially with mental health or things that we can't physically see, we immediately assume there's always something. And sometimes there is. I do believe that. That wasn't this. But the same community that brought that, it was a very small percentage of people who brought their hurt there. A majority of our community was so important in us getting to this place. Like, and when I say a majority, I mean like 99% of the people just genuinely love my daughter, love our family. And so there's miracles all around, and some of them are in the program, which is also science. There's a miracle in the science of the fact that you figured this out. Like, I believe that is part of how miracles work, is science is God gives us brain for a reason. Sorry, I got a little emotional there for a moment.
Okay. There wasn't any magic cure, but the recovery is quite magical when you have the right ingredients, right? It's like the same as a cooking. You know, when you have the right ingredients, do the, steps in the right order, right? And then the patience, right? And then the practice, then you get better. And so speaking of better, Indy, since you started the program, where are you with your life compared to how it was before?
So as of 3 weeks ago, I'm employed at a local fast food place. Let's go. Shout out to them, because the manager, owner, I don't actually know her rank. She's also part of the
owner.
Okay, she's also part of the
one of the owners.
She's also part of the community that's been super supportive.
She's on staff with us at my church.
Yeah. So I'm employed, and while I'm only working short shifts to start, I did manage to go 3.5 hours without any episodes while at work, including the rush, which that was big for me because overstimulation is a very big trigger for me. I have had several non-epileptic days, even outside of the 9 days. I actually made it a few days earlier this week, but it reset today. I hadn't even realized it which that's fantastic in itself. The fact that I don't even fully realize when I go a full day without it, that itself is great. As of a couple nights ago, I am able to walk 1 hour without any braces. We have
mobility aids.
I have the braces, not the mobility aids. There we go. We have a walking pad that's like right over there. That's also been great to build up that strength. And while there are still symptoms I'm still struggling with, like the gait issues are still there, even though I can walk longer with it. And I'm still having to take attacks every now and then. So much of it has gotten better, and it really is because of this program.
Yeah. I think the other part that is she has to do the work. We can't do it for her. And that's the part where sometimes, and I think we forget the greatest miracle is the human body, because our bodies are designed. Like a doctor can only start the process, but the body has to do the rest. Like you can stitch up a wound, but the body still has to heal itself. The mind is the same way. And I think, again, I might be talking to a particular audience just because of my own experience. I think for those that are people of faith, we struggle with this because the mind is something that, particularly for some people, if we can't see it, it's not real. And so I think you said early on when people say it's all in your head. Yes, it's all in your head. Like the brain is a crazy thing. And so because it's not as simple as it's telling somebody who's depressed, just feel happy. There's a lot of things that are going into it. And so that is the miraculous part. But the miracle is that we're designed to do this. And what you've done is helped her unlock that miracle. And so it wasn't magic, though it felt magical. It was miraculous, even though it's still not a miracle. The work is there. You just have to be willing to do the work. It's, though the spontaneous remission, I think that's the thing that still kind of weirds me out, is it can disappear and then come back a year later. But I want, and I've told her this, the other thing that I really appreciate, I am so proud of the work that she has done, because truthfully, we can't do this work for her. I can't make her do the things. I can't make her change her mindset. I can't make her, those are all decisions that she did. But I think being in community with other kids.
Yes, that's also been a big help.
So I think community with other kids, us doing our part, whereas I think before, she's never said this, so maybe I'm wrong, but I think it may have felt like a lot of times we were expecting her to do everything and we just needed to let her.
Yeah.
And there's a part where we have to do something too. And doing that work, I think in partnership, that collaboration between the two empowered it.
Yeah. And the community is a huge thing because you feel alone. And again, right, it's a pretty hard thing that you're doing, right? So the power of community, especially to me, the way that I created the community is really about solution or resolution or recovery focus, right? Rather than let's just stay in the problem, right? Who has worse symptoms, right? Oh, this is really bad. Yeah, we have hard days and we have rough days.
Learning days.
Learning days, exactly. Yeah, we have learning days. And then what can we do about that, right? So there's always that option, even the baby steps. So I'm so proud of you. And I agree with you, Jason, that it was Indy's hard work that made a huge difference. And she is surrounded by people in the, environment where that growth was possible, right? And then welcomed. So I'm so proud of you. And you're making the impact, Indy. Because of your influence. And I'm so proud of you for just spreading the awareness and what is possible, right? And then really spreading the hope to the point that another family joined, the program because of you. So it's really nice to hear how much of the work that you're doing, not only for yourself, but for the entire planet. And it's just far beyond, right? Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of which, what would you say to other families who are watching this video or found out about the program, sort of like where you were before you joined the program and then kind of contemplating or thinking about, what would you say to those families?
I would start by saying it is okay to go into it scared, and you don't need to be 100%, hurrah, this is going to work. You don't need to start off that way if that's just not where you are. And that won't change the outcome as long as you are willing to adapt.
Open-mindedness and open-heartedness, I think, were really big. Because you said from the beginning, if she was going to be I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And we weren't, you actually put the onus on us as parents that if we were going to go in and be well, no, we don't want to change, that wasn't going to work. So what I would say is for parents, particularly that are listening, understanding you're not alone actually makes it, that for me was probably the biggest part. Hearing other parents and how they have dealt with it and their own struggles and emotions helped us to be able to go, okay, so we're not bad parents for feeling this way. Our fears are understandable. And then the way you've coached us through it, and saying like, of course you did it this way. And no, it wasn't the right way, but you don't naturally know the right way with FND because it's so counterintuitive. And I think that's I would leave with is everything in FND is counterintuitive to what your brain as a parent says you're supposed to do when your child is struggling. Because we want to rescue naturally.
Yeah. It's like course correcting with a car. Look at me go. You've seen a car analogy.
Yeah,
I also started driving ish. I got behind the wheel twice.
Yeah, ish. That's very, very limited ish. It's a very limited ish.
I got behind the wheel twice after not driving for 2 years. So I'm still counting that.
Yeah.
Anyway, where I was going with that is like, you want to feel like you need to turn this way if you're going one direction, but you actually need to turn the other way. It's kind of like that. And I know that was a beautiful analogy.
Someone who's never had to do that. Okay, I know what you're talking about when you're skidding on. Yeah, okay. I think as a parent, if I could give one last comment for any parent who's watching or listening, it's one, you're not alone. Community really does matter. Hopefulness is so important because when you don't have hopefulness, and part of how you get that hopefulness is through the community and hearing stories of people. Because I'll be honest, hearing people going like, my son's gone a month without any episodes. I was like, oh, that'd be wonderful to get there. But I was skeptical. I was like, that's probably not going to be us, right? And then to see it happen and then get to be that for other people in the community. The cohort is just as important for the parents as it is for the kids because it's how we interact with them also influences. So don't give up. I know it's discouraging, especially if you've done years. I mean, there are people who've been trying for years to find help, and there's no magic bullet. It's not a one-time thing. It does take work and it takes some resilience.
And it's really a lifestyle change versus a do this once and then once you're done, you don't need to keep doing it. No, you want to keep doing it.
And it's really about the building a habit, right? And then it becomes part of who you are. And then it's just really more about adapting the skills you're learning and you have learned in other areas in your life. Because if it's not just FND, it could be another transition, right? Another big life change, right? Another big thing, right? In your life, maybe once or twice. But now you're ready because you have the skills under your belt of how to be resilient, in anything and everything that comes, your way. So I'm very, very proud of all of you for coming this far. And I can already tell that it's so inspiring to other families. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Didn't I say that? What Jason and Lisa did as parents, the way they stepped into their role, stayed steady and did not give up. That is exactly what this work looks like when a family goes all in. And what Indy showed up and did for herself. After everything this family has gone through already, that is a pure resilience. This is real. If your teenager is in a similar place right now, if you are exhausted, if you have already tried so many things that didn't work, if you are Jason sitting at your computer wondering whether to reach out one more time, I will say, do not give up. There is hope. Indy is not the only one, and your family's story is not over yet. Watch another family's story right here, right now, because I want you to see what is possible. I'll see you in the next one.